Alright, hola, welcome back to Soul Mechanics. Step into my office, go ahead and plant that ass wherever you damn well please. Make yourselves comfortable. Buckle in for this episode is going to be speaking further to synchronicity, finally getting down to the nuts and bolts of that. I am in fact already slipping things by YouTube censorship policies again. We're taking a second run at this, and worked out the first time, so I mean, nobody even noticed it. Like, I'm waiting for you guys to comment that shit. Somebody tell me what that was in the, I believe that was the first Destiny video, maybe? Anyways, we're finally going to be getting to magnetic compatibility, although first I'd like to mention, I'm going to go ahead and, I've coined several terms and made up several different, avenues of interest throughout the course of this, especially concerning my doctrine, or my thesis, rather. But, I'm going to go ahead and coin a new one, psychological hypochondriac. I believe that I suffer from this condition because I just watched several, I was lying down to take a rest because I was beat up today. I had a lot to do, and I carried a lot of shit around, so I lied down to take a rest. I made the mistake of eating. Whenever I eat something, it tells my brain that it's time to go to sleep, and then it tries to shut my body down. I have a real hard time keeping up with it. So I lie down to take a rest, as I've stated several times now, and I was playing documentaries about one documentary was about one documentary was about psychosis, one documentary was about dissociative identity disorder, one documentary was about schizophrenia, one documentary was about psychopathy, and I am just thoroughly convinced that I am all of these things now. I mean, maybe that happens to people, the tendency to kind of identify with things, but I mean, I have all of the symptoms, or if you can call them symptoms. I have all of the telltale signs of all of these conditions. It's crazy. Obviously, where it comes to psychopathy, I do empathize with people. I have a great deal of empathy, and I picked that up from my ex-wife too. I gained, her abilities, her innate skills, her talents kind of rubbed off on me, and I became somewhat of an empath myself. But for the most part, Little Washu, if you're watching this, I haven't talked to Little Washu. I'm sorry. If you're watching this, Little Washu, I'm really sorry. I haven't been in touch. I feel bad about that. I've been tied up, man, and I haven't been paying a lot of attention to Messenger because I've been engaged in a lot of shit, in the world, but I'll go ahead and I'll contact you soon. But in any case, turns out, I guess you might be right about me now. The one thing, the dissociative identity disorder, that one, not many people in the public are going to be acutely aware, but Little Washu, she knows that, we've dealt with this directly, that I in fact do, I have a dissociative identity disorder. Now, I should like to state, before I continue with that, everybody has a dissociative identity disorder. This is more common than anything else in the world. It is, in fact, a fractured identity disorder is like the baseline consideration in the doctrine of value and aspects. It's considering an overall ultimate singular identity to be fractured into a multitude of even species and realities, for the most part. Like, even if you consider a multiverse where there's multiple dimensions existing, even infinite dimensions existing, each one of those dimensions is just a fractalated compound of millions upon billions of identities that are all fractured from one single identity. So yeah, we all suffer. The dissociative identity disorder ultimately is what makes reality happen, and even on an individual level, everybody does have isolate pieces of their identity kind of hidden away or stored away for safekeeping, or we'll get into that. That's another topic too. But me personally, I do have an actual identifiable dissociative identity that was manufactured through the use of what we call thought text, which is an adapted technology regarding psychology that we got from the whole MK Ultra mind control experiments and all that shit. We decided to take that and dick around with it because ultimately that's that's our technology, like that, those thought techs and that mind control technology was essentially spot casting warped into this distorted kind of evil, maniacal sort of methodology for it. But I mean, really getting down the baseline of it, it's kind of a hypnotic. It's a hypnosis. It's kind of a spot hypnosis, or spot casting that was ultimately stolen from the elder traditions and from what we know about how to make use of it, and then warped, as I said, using drugs and torture, trauma, and just warped into this methodology that pretty much is based on fracturing an identity and causing for broken pieces of identities to form specific identities that are essentially programmed by what they call a handler. Which we'll get into that. That's going to be a big deal with the color coding course when we get to that. But for now, I'll just say that I decided, as being the vanguard, being the person who does in fact go ahead and test everything on myself. That's one of the reasons I'm an effective director, is because I've been through everything that you're likely to go through. I put myself through it deliberately so that I know how to handle it, for the purpose of being capable of teaching you and then helping guide you through it. I mean, that's what a spotter is, man. That's what every spotter should be doing, really, is equipping themselves with what it takes. What it takes to teach others and to be prepped to help others. Although I'm not going to go ahead and suggest that everybody tries every drug out there and puts themselves through all the more damaging experiences. I mean, the shit that I've been through, as I've stated so many times before, is just terribly delicate. I put myself through shit that would break most people on many occasions over and over again. In fact, right now I'm going through some shit that would put people into a hell zone. But of course, as I was saying, I did go ahead and I tested the thought text on myself, and I did in fact manage to fracture a piece of my identity and actually build it and construct an alternate identity that it's not like a switch, like I don't lights out and have this other identity step forward. We're aware of each other, and we're both, in fact, in the process through the monthly experimentation that I do, which obviously I'm still speaking to innocent backer, in case anybody's not aware. It is for everybody, but specifically for him, because we're working together now on giving him a training course for the most part. I'm going to be his spotter and director, but you've seen the videos where I spoke to the monthly experimentation. You mentioned that in the conversation we were having on Messenger. So you know about that, and that's essentially this feminine aspect of me that I'm attempting to fuse together, the masculine and feminine aspects, which does come back to the fusion of the perpetual and ephemeral selves, because that feminine aspect, that Tanner Fenton, as we call her, she is aware of a lot more than I am. And she does, for the most part, consider herself to be in every possible way much better and just greater and higher than I am. So she can be considered a kind of a higher self. She's even faster than I am, sharper. She's more pronounced. And as I said, we're fusing those two together. So that aspect of myself is in fact present. It's present right now. It's not like it's becoming more and more present in my everyday, average, ordinary life. Each time that I do this experiment, I'm fusing and emulating aspects of her, becoming one with her. So, like I said, it's not like this crazy fucking, I don't, like, Donovan doesn't disappear and Tanner takes over. We're the same person. We know each other, but when I'm in that state where I identify as her, I do think of myself with this person, Donovan, as being kind of a separate person that I do have a tendency to kind of put down and be shitty about. But I mean, fuck her. She's a dick. She's a bitch, man. But whatever. The point is that I did manage to actually fracture that, and I do, for the most part, have that fractured identity disorder. It's something that I played around with. It's experimental, and it's not crazy. It is crazy, obviously, but it's not like, I don't know, I probably shouldn't even be talking about it, but I want perfect visibility, which is going to speak directly to what we're getting at here, magnetic compatibility. Now, magnetic compatibility, as I stated before in the other video, you asked me if I can help you see the signs. I said I can't help you see the signs because that's your experience, but that experience belongs to you, and it's isolate unto you, and there's this illusion of division that being a blue, I can kind of breach that a little bit. I can actually break through that illusion and get to you. That's going to be an innate talent that I have as a blue. We don't know your color yet. You may very well have that talent as well, and ultimately, I'm going to give it to you, so you will have it. You'll have all of them eventually. We're gonna essentially make a purpler out of you. We're gonna do everything we can to boost you as much as possible, man. You have the interest to do it. We're gonna make you a badass motherfucker. I wouldn't recommend playing around with the thought text as I did, but if you ever get into a scenario like that where you realize, and you do have alternates, you have shards of your identity that are broken up in your value system, in your personality, so you become aware of them. At the very least, you have somebody who can help guide you toward integrating them if you so choose. That really was the purpose of it, ultimately. But, I mean, more just to dick around because I'm a fucking asshole and I like to do that. But seeing the signs. I can't help you see the signs. What I can do is teach you how to make the signs happen. That's what spotters do. We don't give you answers. We teach you how to make your own answers. And ultimately what I'm giving you here through Soul Mechanics, what I'm giving everybody is a basic framework on how to do that. I'm not trying to tell you that something is absolutely this. I'm giving you an avenue by which to investigate what the absolute situation is so that we can come to a conclusion together. Oh, by the way, we got a Christian rep on board. She's going to do an interview for us. It's going to be fun. She and I have had this like really big disagreement. We've been bantering with each other for a while, but ultimately we turned out to be frenemies. And we identify with each other, and she's a hottie. That's not why I'm interviewing her, bringing her aboard. We needed a Christian rep. We've needed a Christian rep for a long while. And she popped up, and synchronicity occurred so hard there. The cues that popped up, like, it's incredible. We'll talk to it when I do the interview with her. Anyways, so I've spoken to creating cues in the past. Like I've created the primary cues that I use are going to be black cats and butterflies. Butterflies came to me. I didn't actually decide that. I decided on the black cats because it was unique unto itself in the sense that most people see it the other way around. But the butterflies just kind of, that was something that was presented to me really in regards to the thought text, because the MK Ultra eventually kind of evolved. The MK Ultra mind control program eventually evolved into what they called a Project Monarch, and the symbol for that was the butterfly. And I was ultimately sent, like our benefactor, the living world, it actually put me on the mission, the objective to find a certain person who was affected by this mind control and help her. And when I did find her, that led to becoming my origin story. Like it was really cool how that happened, but ultimately the butterfly was my cue that led me to her, and that became my cue overall. So when I see that butterfly, I go for it. If I see somebody with a butterfly tattoo, most especially a blue butterfly tattoo, I'm going to go for them and talk to that person, and every time they're going to have something that's that is obviously for me, that is necessary for my advancement. So that's what you're going to want to do, is identify a cue, something, as I've stated before, something that your environment can produce fairly easily. You want it to be unique so that you can identify it. You don't want it to be something that pops up every 5 seconds, but you want it to be something that can pop up at any time. If you make it something, extremely intricate and convoluted, the world will find a way to produce it. You'd be astounded at how effectively functional the world is in that regard, but you don't want to make it difficult on the world. And another aspect, again, is the visibility. You want to be open and honest with yourself, with the world, with people around you, and just genuine and open and honest. Don't hide things. Don't hide yourself, because when you hide yourself and when you hide your interests or your capacity, when you hide anything that you sneak around, the world can't see you. The world has to operate on the same rule set that we do. Like, we've developed these rules, we've developed this game ourselves, and it's the physics of it in play. It has to operate via a certain rule set, which is, you know, if you hide from the world, it can't see you. This is what's spoken of in the Garden of Eden story, where they put on the clothes and God asks, why are you hiding yourself? You know, this is, that's pretty much the concept or the value that was presented there. And, you know, I've spoken to that before. That was actually my spot casting example, was the Garden of Eden story, but I didn't mention that. The visibility factor there, that's the biggest thing here. The three things that we're speaking to with soul mechanics, where it regards lucidity overall, is going to be visibility, flexibility, and responsibility. And we'll identify and speak to all of those, but what I want to say here is, firstly, I'd like to speak to deja vu. I mentioned deja vu before, where in time mechanics, you know, dealing with soul mechanics, time mechanics, like I said, you might smell something or hear a song or something that brings you back to the past, makes you feel like you're back in the past, and it essentially feels like a kind of a time travel, and it is a kind of a time travel because your physiology will respond to that. If it takes you back to a point in the past where you were healthy and happy and joyous, your body's going to react in that way and boost its healing properties temporarily. If you can manage to control that by utilizing the triggers that are associated to the sensory perceptions effectively, you can actually cause for your body to dramatically alter its functionality. Like, you could be sick with fucking cancer. I'm gonna go ahead and bet this. We haven't tested this yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and bet that you could be sick with something like cancer and turn it the fuck around and eliminate those tumors by using this. It's that effective. That placebo effect is how everything operates. And people really need to nail this down and understand this. That psychosomatic response, that placebo effect, that's how everything works. The chemicals that your body is responding to when you use drugs, and also something you want to keep in mind, that when you do use drugs, you're not actually introducing chemicals to your body. What you're doing is you're introducing chemical signatures that trigger the production of chemicals that are already in the brain. These neuropeptides that you essentially, you take a drug and it tells the neuropeptides to activate certain chemical triggers that activate associative properties in the brain that produce chemical responses from the glandular system. So everything is already in the brain, and pretty much you're just, when you eat a pill or a drug or something of any sort, you use a drug, the chemicals in there, they're just little patterns. There's nothing innately special about them. They're the same thing as everything else, just configured in a certain pattern that acts like a key for the locks in the brain that release trigger chemical responses. So there is literally nothing causing that response. It's all a placebo effect. It's all psychosomatic. So time mechanics, soul mechanics, principle dynamics is essentially getting to the bottom line, the basics on how that operates, and trying to figure out how to do it manually without the use of triggering mechanisms, without the use of chemical or harmful triggering mechanisms. We can do this manually via the brain. The mind over matter, basic principle. Now, speaking to deja vu, when you actually feel as though you've experienced something before, a concept for that, which I've already presented the concept that it could be this eternal recurrence and the daemon figure and the higher self, which we're going to speak to that in just a second. Don't let me forget about that. But another theory behind that, a sound one, is that what could be happening there is that you could be running into a sensory perception that's triggering a memory from the future, because you are retroactive, and for all intents and purposes, the future does exist in a sense. In a sense, it doesn't. The past and the future doesn't exist. There's only now, but the future is happening now, and you can access it. This is going to have to be considered entirely hypothetical, but that's an idea that because many people who experience deja vu, they actually remember what's going to happen. And I'm thinking that maybe it's time mechanics in play, where you're running into a cue, a signature in the environment that's triggering a memory from the future. And that's entirely possible, A, because, again, we're retroactive, and B, because we are actually in the past right now. And I'm not going to explain precisely what I mean by that, although there are several different ways to explain that is happening right now. I mean, ultimately, you're existing kind of behind what the brain's actually experiencing, so you're in the past all the time. But we're literally, like, we're in the past right now. We are in a point before now, and I'll get to that later when I get to the point where I can actually explain it without coming off insane. But so dealing with synchronicity, essentially you have a signature that's based on your value system is built up into what becomes an ultimate overall signature. That this signature is going to attract things. It's not just like attracts like with the laws of attraction. It's not just opposites attract with the greater magnetic compatibility in play. It's actually values that create compound values, what we call shards of the identity. Essentially, magnetic compatibility works in such a way as for a problem to attract its solution, for a question to attract its answer. And the way that it attracts it, when they say God works in mysterious ways, man, this is what we're talking about, is the ways that it attracts things is so meticulous and well plotted out that these synchronicities will occur. And if you're fast and you're sharp, you pay attention and you actually jump on the cues that the environment provides, it will lead you to the solutions to your problems. It will lead you to the answers to your questions. And it can happen really, really, really fast, like over and over again in a matter of moments, especially if you start moving faster and experiencing things faster, compacting time, that these synchronicities will occur like they're occurring right now on this phone, this shitty phone right here for me, repeatedly as we're doing this. They can happen very fast. And as I said, essentially magnetic compatibility, the idea of it is our attempt at explaining how this very mysterious and meticulous plotting transpires, that, the trajectory in play, the magnetics of it can attract the values that actually ultimately kind of bank shot you into the ultimate destination that you're going for. But it's that, we're still working on that. Anyways, that's as much as I can say right now because I'm out of time. But I'll probably go ahead and make another video because there's more that I wanted to say. But thank you for watching. Keelah, Taerve, siari. Namasté.